dos, uno.
Muy buenos días a todas y a todos. Muchas gracias por
Everyone.
acompañarnos en
Thank you
esta
very much for
oportunidad
being
en la
with
que
us
vamos
this
a comentar
opportunity.
sobre los
We're going
principales
to
aspectos
comment
de los
the
resultados de aguas
main
andinas
aspects
al
of the
30 de
results in
septiembre
Aguas Andinas
2025.
to um,
En este evento
30
presentarán el
September
CFO de la compañía,
2025. We'll have
Miquel
the
Sanz,
CFO of the company,
y
Mr.
Cristian
Sanz,
Torres,
and Christian
gerente de
Torres,
control
the
de gestión
manager
y de
of
contabilidad. Les
management
recordamos
and
que
accounting. We would like
pueden
to
ir dejando
remind
sus
you that
preguntas
you
escritas en
can
el
leave
chat
your
destinado
questions written
especialmente
in
para
the
ello,
chat box
y
that
también
is
recordarles que
dedicated to this. We would
después
like
o
to
con
remind you
posterioridad
that
nosotros vamos a dejar
later on
disponible en la
we
web un
will
replay de
have
este
a
evento. Hay
replay
traducción
available
simultánea
on
en
the web,
inglés
and there is
también para que puedan
simultaneous
pulsar
interpretation
el
into
botón
English
que
so
los va a
that
llevar
you
a ese
can
canal.
press the button that will
Los dejamos
lead you
con Miguel
to
Sanz
that,
para
but
comenzar
we'll
con
give
esta
the floor
presentación.
to Miguel Sanz to start up out this presentation.
Hola, buenos días a todos y a
Hello, good
todas.
morning. Good morning,
Como
everyone.
siempre, antes de
As
entrar
usual,
en el detalle
before
de los
going into
resultados
the
de
details
estos
of the
primeros 9 meses
results
del
of
año,
these first months of the
quisiera
year, I would
tratar
like
algunos temas
to
de contexto.
deal with some
Por un lado, tema
contextual
hidrológico.
topics. First of all, we have the
En la precipitación de
hydri
los 9 primeros meses en la
hydrological
ciudad,
levels of the first
se
9 months
espera
in
que
the
fue
city,
algo inferior
and this
al
was
año pasado.
lowered compared to
Fue la
last
segunda
year,
más alta desde
and
el
it
año
was the
2017,
second most
con un
important
tercer
since
trimestre con una
2017, with the
precipitación
third
en la
quarter
ciudad
with
bastante
the
similar al año
rainfall
pasado.
that was very
Aunque
similar
distribuida de
to the
forma
rainfall
diferente,
last year.
recordarán
It was
que el año
distributed
pasado, el mes
in
de
a different
agosto,
manner.
hubo
Last
lluvias
year, in the
intensas. Este año ha
August,
sido un
we
poco
had
más
intense
repetido durante los
rainfalls, and
meses
this
del trimestre.
year has been better
En la
distributed throughout the
cordillera, la
year.
lluvia
In the
acumulada
mountain
también es algo
range, the
inferior al
water
año 2024,
accumulated is
pero
lower than
mantenemos el
compared to
embalse
2024, but
al
we still have
84%
the
al final de
dam
septiembre,
at
bastante similar, de
84%,
hecho,
which
a los
is very
niveles que
comparable
mantenemos
to
a
the
día de hoy.
levels that we have day by
Como
day.
parte de
As a
nuestra
part of
optimización
our
operativa y
optimization
gracias
from
a
the
la
operational
disponibilidad
point
que
of
teníamos
view, we have
otros
this
actores en la cuenca,
availability
en este
in the
trimestre hemos
basin. In
acordado
this
ciertas
quarter, we
transferencias
have
que
agreed
también nos
some
han
transfers
ayudado a
that
mantener
have
este
been
nivel del
helpful
embalse,
to
a la
maintain
vez
this
que
level
cuidar
at the
el
dam,
recurso que tenemos en
and
los
also
acuíferos.
preserving the resources that we have in the
Respecto
aquifers.
de las
Now,
diferentes tarifas,
concerning the different
un poco de
rates,
resumen de la situación
I will
actual.
leave you
Adicionalmente a la
summary of
publicación
the
del
present
decreto de aguas
situation,
andinas, que
the
precisamente se dio
publication of the
el
decree
mismo
of
día
water and
que tuvimos
BINA
la
that was
videoconferencia de
published the
presentación de
same day that we
resultados
have the
para el primer semestre
conference
a
for
finales
the results
de
in the
agosto.
first quarter at
La
the
semana
end of
pasada se
August
publicó
this
el
year.
decreto de agua
Last week,
Manquehue, lo que
the
nos permitirá
decree of
empezar a
Awasman
facturar
Gateway
también
was
en esa
published, which
sociedad con las nuevas
will
tarifas.
allow to
Y
bill
para
with the
cerrar
new
con el tema de las
rates in
tarifas base,
this
Aguas
company, and
Cordillera
then
sigue
we
su curso
have the
normal para
basic
conseguir
rates
nuestra próxima
that we
publicación.
have also this
En
information
cuanto a
available for
tarifas
the
vinculadas
next
a cambios de
publication.
estándar,
Regarding
a
the
finales de
rates
octubre
related to the
tuvimos
standard
la
changes at the end
autorización
of
del
October, we have the
regulador
authorization
para
of the
aplicar la
regulator
tarifa
in
adicional
order to apply the
0,55 para el plan de suministro
additional
alternativo
rate of
con efectos retroactivos al 15 de
0.55
septiembre.
with retroactive
Y
effects
bueno, con
to
respecto a los
September 15.
proyectos con
Concerning
entrada en
now the
vigor
projects that will go
corto
into
plazo,
force in the
en el
short
caso
term,
de
in the case
desorganización, sigue su curso previsto
we have
para finalizar,
this
de
course
hecho, su
as
construcción y puesta en
envisaged
funcionamiento
to
en las próximas
put this
semanas,
facility
lo que
into
implicaría una
operation in the next
activación
coming weeks. This
de su
will
tarifa en el
mean
primer
that the
trimestre
rates
aproximadamente del
will
año que
be
viene.
effective in the first quarter
Comentarles
next year.
también
I
que en
would
el
like
pasado
to
directorio
comment you
se
that in the
aprobó la
last
distribución
board direction, we
de un dividendo
approved the
provisorio
distribution
sobre el resultado
of
del año
the
2025
provisional
de algo más
dividend
de
of the
42
result
mil
of
millones de
20
pesos, lo
over
que es
42
equivalente a
million
algo más
pesos,
de
which is
6,86 pesos por acción, dividendo
6.83
que se hará
pesos per
efectivo su
action,
pago el
and
próximo
the
2 de
payment will
diciembre.
be effective on December the 2nd.
Respecto de los
Now,
ratings,
concerning
en el
the
último trimestre
ratings,
hemos sido
in the last
ratificados
quarters we have
como
been
A menos por
ratified
Standard
as
Poor's
A
en el rating internacional,
minus by
a la vez que
Standard and Poor's in the
en
international
A
rating,
positivo en
and the
CDR y
A
CR en el
positive and
rating local,
FG
todos ellos con
uh,
perspectiva
in the
estable.
local rating.
Finalmente, hay que destacar
And
un
finally, I
hecho
wanted to
que
highlight
ocurrió
a
hace
fact
aproximadamente
that
un mes, y es que
happened
Aguas
a
Andinas fue
month ago.
reconocida
Aguas
en todas las
Andinas was
categorías en el
recognized in all
ranking
the
IAS 20
categories of the
como
rating
mejor empresa entre las
20
evaluadas en los 6
with the
países
best
participantes
companies in the six
y
participating
líderes en
countries,
sostenibilidad
a leader
en
in
relación con
sustainability
inversionistas, lo que
and relationship
nos
with
llenó de orgullo
investors, which is a
como
reason
empresa.
uh,
Y
of
sin más,
pride
les
for
dejo ahora
us as a company.
con
I will
Cristian,
give the
quien va a
floor now
explicar
to
más en
Christian,
detalle
who
lo
will
acontecido
give
durante estos
further details what happened in the
primeros 9 meses del año.
first 9 months of the year. Thank you. Thank you,
Buenos días a
Miguel.
todas y
Good
todos.
morning, everyone. We have the closing of the third quarter. That is ratifying once again the positive evolution and the pathway of the operational results in the company. In terms of the EBITDA, we have an increase of 8.1% as compared to the same period of time last year. In June, this was 6%, and in March, 4.1%. And this is ratifying what we commented before. That is to say that we, as a result of the coming into force of the new rates from the eighth tariff process of the Aguas Andinas, Agua Cordillera, and Aguas Manquehues, this is already reflected positively in the evolution of the company's income. And at the closing period, it has an increase of 7.8% as compared to last year. The main effect is what I was commented and is associated to the new rates, as well as the indexation by polymony that were reflected last year. In the case of last year, the last indexation was in September last year with 3.2%, and in March this year, with the coming into force of the new rates process with 2.6%. In terms of the volumes and the growth in consumption, we have a variation of 1.2%, and in the last quarter, it was increased positively in 2.8%. The first part of the year was rather steady and flat, and the last quarter it goes up. This is quite linked to a management, a commercial management, very active that is taking place at the level of the company with different projects that seek to improve the commercial efficiency in terms of measuring and also billing. And there are two projects to highlight. One of them related to the installation of meters, and the second one, the management of the green areas of Santiago. And this allowed to recover the measurement and the billing of some sectors of the city that were not recorded. In terms of the non-sanitary income, the variation is positive, and because of the non-regulated branches, and also the better income related to the gains for the services to clients. And last year we had two incomes that were not recurrent. So, for example, the insurance reimbursement and also the engineering services that are related to the construction of line number 7 of the subway. So at the income level, we can say that the sanitary income has an important, significant growth rate. On the other hand, is also we have the volumes as a result of the new rates that are in force and being applied right now. On the side of the cost, they are going up by 7.5%. It is important to highlight that 66% of the increase of costs are explained as a vegetative or organic nature. What do I mean by this? This is to say the growth rate is related to the variation of the consumer price index, CPI, and also a part is related to the variable cost of production. We have higher costs, and a part of it is related to the costs. We also have the costs related to income by the non-sanitary side, and also as a result of costs related to the new additional rates that are already into force. And first of all, we have one of them that is related to the transfers of water that are offset partially. And as Mika said before, we already were authorized for the plan of alternative supply, and this is all the logistics that the company is putting in place as the cases of force majeure or acts of God. And we were explaining also the 66% of this increase in costs. Another relevant information that we can highlight, first of all, is the cost of staff. And there were some regulatory changes that are already in place. One third of this increase of the cost is explained by this. And we'd like to highlight something that is related to the working hours, 40 hours a week, so that the shifts have to be accommodated consequently. And as of August, we have also the new labor reform, and this goes as a charge for the employer. Thirdly, we have to consider the increase of the minimum salary, and this is also reflected in the compensation that is paid to all the payroll. One third of this is explained by this, and another third is explained as an accounting element associated to the evaluation of the actuarial value that is related to the reserve at the number of services that is part of the collective bargaining that the company has with the work.
Another third is explained by greater costs associated to personnel, necessary personnel in order to maintain service continuity, increase the standards, and also to develop new projects, new initiatives within the framework of the transformation projects, which also implies efficiencies that the company has been capturing. Another cost concept that has been relevant during this fiscal year is electric energy. As you know, it has been an issue in the country, and this is reflected in an increase of the regulated tariffs of the operational entities of the company. This is an increase, and also at the level of consumption, the company has developed initiatives that have allowed to optimize and reduce energy consumption. And during the period, the consumption has reduced by 7.5 regarding the production of water using less wells, as well as the biofactory with great generation. So this 7.5% represents a savings of around 2.5 million pesos. Without these actions, the impact because of the electric rates would have been even better or even greater. The other operational cost, as we have been saying, is the development of certain activities that are relevant and strategic for the company. For example, the implementation of some applications for business support that is entered into force in the past quarter of last year. And with this, we already have been applying it for 1 year, and it is part now of the structural cost of the company. Also, we have continued working actively in our networks regarding the disobstruction of collectors, as well as the detection of leaks associated to our water efficiency plants. Amongst other commercial management, it is important to state that there is an active management due to the cut because of clients that have debt. And this is part of the collection actions that the company is carrying out. This elimination of the service, the model says that when we visit the client, we offer the possibility of paying right there their debt before the service is cut. And this, plus other measures that the company has carried out, has allowed the debt level and the bad debt to be stabilized. In terms of percentages, the income by the end of this period is at 1.3%. And if we compare this with last year, it was 1.4%. So for us, this is good news because the evolution of the debt has become stable consistently after the pandemic period. And finally, it is important to state that amongst the plans that the company is developing, we have the transformation program, which is the umbrella that generates most of the initiatives in order to look for economic efficiency and operational performance for the company. At the end of this period, we have captured efficiencies for more than 2.6 million pesos, and one part of that come from this project, as well as the purchasing management of the company. So in summary, the income has increased by 7.8% compared to 7.5%, and this explains the positive evolution of our EBITDA and operational results, which we closed at 254 billion pesos. Under the EBITDA, we need to highlight one, the financial results. Here, there are three components that explain the financial results of the company. The first is the financial costs associated to the debt of the company. By the end of this period, we have a greater debt compared to last year, and also the composition of the debt change. And in the first part of the year, we paid for bank loans and credits that had been obtained at very low rates. Now we have a debt composition that is at the market rate. The other relevant issue is the monetary correction of our financial debt, because this represents a variation of almost 3.8 billion pesos. And finally, this is compensated because at the level of financial income, we had an improvement compared to the surplus management that the company has. And at the level of our results, the variation is negative, basically because last year we had the effect, a non-recurrent effect or a one-off effect, that was the sale of a land lot for amount equivalent to 4 billion pesos. And this explains the variation at this line of other results. And at the level of income tax, the effective rate for income tax includes the monetary correction of the assets or the capital, and therefore this generates a positive variation of 720 million. And in the last line, the net profit, we close this period with a profit of around 97 billion pesos, and this represents an improvement of growth of 6.5% compared to the same period in the past year. In terms of cash generation, this is still positive and robust for the company. In terms of the operational cash flows, the collection has been stable and positive, and this allows us to compensate the working capital with the payment for suppliers. A significant effect that we have commented has been at the level of taxation, because starting from this year, we applied the accelerated depreciation of our taxable fixed assets, and we had a recovery of almost 26 billion pesos, which are incorporated in the cash of the company. To this, we need to add that starting in May, we are already paying a rate of a PPM, which is a provisional payment and income tax monthly that is done periodically. Therefore, this contributes to an improvement in terms of this concept for 30 billion pesos. Another important matter is the capex paid, the payment of investments, and this is associated to the seasonality of the execution of the projects. This is not linear, so this depends on the type of projects and when they are executed. Therefore, this explains the positive variation in this period. As a result of the free cash flow, we have 51 billion positive compared to the previous period. And then we have the asset sales that last year we had, and at the level of taxes, there is a variation, a positive variation. We need to consider that the payment of the minimum dividend was done, the provisory dividend was done in January of this year and not in December, as it is usually done every year. With this, at the level of cash flow generation, we have a positive variation of 21.7 billion pesos. When we see the variation of our cash position, this is reflected just as the variation of the net financial debt. The variation of the debt increased due to the monetary correction, particularly the debt monetary correction, more than 59 billion pesos, but it is compensated by this positive generation of cash flow during the period. At the level of debt structure, there have not been any variations in the past quarter. Just to remember that during this fiscal year, the company went out to the local market with a placement with a bond of 4 million UFs. And right now, 33% of our debt has the category of green and social. And 81.1% of the debt is based on the UF, which explains the variation at the level of financial results. And with a composition of variable fixed rate of 96.4%, and this provides a lot of stability and risk mitigation given the volatility in the market. And in terms of investments, the company maintains its investment strength in order to ensure the secure supply in this context of climate change. And this is leveraged in our pillar of BioCity, which are those strategic projects in the short and midterm which have the purpose of providing this safety in the supplies. And this has been collected in the last result of the rating period. Our investments are based fundamentally in the renewable of networks, both drinking water as well as wastewater, that are part of this category of development plan. And also the management of renewal of meters in terms of the corrective part. As part of the projects that will have future rates, we are developing, and we're at an advanced stage, the deodorization in the Farfana biofactory. And in September, it has been with a very good percentage of progress. Other projects associated to capacity of the water treatment plant as well as the wastewater treatment plant. So this concentrates the execution of the projects that we have executed to date. And this is with the focus of ensuring the sustainability, economic and operational sustainability of our business. And finally, all of this translates in the fact that we have economic ratios that are solid and stable. And as Mikkel said, these were ratified by the risk classifications, both local and also we need to highlight the international standards and poor with this A- category, which leaves Aguas Andina in a good position as a private company internationally and also domestically. In the case of EBITDA, we are maintaining a stable indicator by the end of the period at 3.64x, and also the leverage is below 1.4. With this, we have a greater stability, and this has been also observed by the risk classificators. In terms of the EBITDA, we have the update on November the 12th, and we are over 10 times. And this ratifies the positive performance, both economic as well as financial, that the company has been showing in the past accounting period. So this is what I wanted to say, and it was a pleasure to be here with you again. Thank you all for being present in this video conference. We have a couple of questions that have arrived. The first question is related to the volumes and the sales, and it says, the growth of our volumes in the third quarter has to do more with a better metering due to the renewal of meters. This is a company that the company has been reinvesting in this item, or is it because of greater demand? This question is for Miquel. Thank you, Denise. Well, In Since 2022, approximately, we have renewed almost 40% of the meters. It is important that the company has been joining for a while. And although it is true that this year we have carried out some more intensive initiatives, so the weight of the metering improvements could be greater. But in previous years, it has been significant in terms of the change of metering. So maybe the results have been more this year, 2025, but we see a base growth. We need to
We have to take into account an additional topic, that is to say that we have one less day this year, and we get away already from February, but it means some additional decimal points if we standardize that information, and therefore the growth rate that would be higher compared to the exhibited in the closing period of September. Thank you, Miquel. And we have another question concerning the CapEx and the investments. The execution or implementation of this investment by $117 billion in the 9 months of 2025 shows a lower path compared to the investment pattern that was over higher value indicated in the past. Do you think that the execution of the works agreed by the superintendents will be higher than expected? We did this question to Jaime Torres. Concerning the investments, there is a plan that is linked to the execution of such projects. And we can say for certain that in 2025, where we have the lower investment rate in the period of time with the curve of performance and execution of the projects. And therefore, what we are seeing that is for the present year, it will be lower than expected. But in the next coming years, this will be maintained and this guidance will not change because these are projects that are already committed and associated to the rates. Perfect. Thank you very much, Christian. We have another question. Maybe you can answer this question too. This is in connection with the labor costs. We are assessing as a company some measures to mitigate the effects of the labor costs. How do we expect to have the evolution of these impacts as a result of the last measures that were adopted by the law, and how much is still to be reflected in the figures for the coming years? Well, these regulatory changes have two aspects to be analyzed. First of all, the in-house, with the in-house staff, and also with the service that are outsourced. In a company as ours, we have high rate of services that are outsourced. And why do I say this? Because we'll have some effects that will be direct, and we're going to manage them as a company, as I said before, with this law of 40 hours a week and all the provisional reserve. And therefore, we think that this will have an impact in the new bidding processes and the new contracts of services that are outsourced. Based on this, we'll see this gradually. It is important to notice, however, that the pension fund reform also has a staggered process for implementation, where there is an increase of 7% in the rate, and this is applied gradually for a period of time of 9 years. And what are we doing now concerning the outsourcing? We are redesigning all of our processes of bidding in order to absorb as soon as possible this impact, the regulatory impact, I mean, so that we can stabilize all these costs related to the contractors as compared to the preceding years.
Muchísimas gracias, Cristian.
Perfect, and thank you very much, Christian.
Tenemos una pregunta
We have another
relativa también
question
a un proyecto puntual
related
dentro de nuestro
to a
plan de
punctual
inversiones
project and
y
in
dice,
our
¿en qué proceso se
investment plan,
encuentra el
in
proyecto Plan de
which
Suministro Alternativo?
status is the
¿Cuándo va a
plan
entrar en
for the
operación?
alternative
¿Cuánto es el
supply and
CAPEX
when it
asociado a
will
este
come
proyecto y la
into
tarifa
operation,
adicional
which is the
asociada a este
CAPEX,
proyecto también?
CAPEX associated and also the
Miquel, si tú
additional rate
pudieras contestarnos esta
connected
pregunta,
to
por favor.
this project. Mikel, if you can answer
Sí,
that
quizá
question,
pasé
please.
muy
Maybe
rápidamente
I went too
en
quickly
el contexto
through
inicial.
this
El plan de suministro
initial
alternativo
context,
fue
and
aprobado
this
tras
alternative
la
supply
aplicación de la
scheme
tarifa por
with the
la
application of the rate
superintendencia
was approved by the
la tercera o cuarta
superintendency
semana de octubre,
the third or
con
fourth
efectos
week
retroactivos
of
15 de septiembre. Eso
October
quiere
with the
decir
retroactive
que
effect
eh,
to
ya
September
tenemos
15. That is to
todo
say that we
a
already
disposición
have
de la
everything
ciudad para
available
poder utilizarlo cuando se
to
dé el
use
caso.
this
Es decir, desde
when the
finales de junio
case
nosotros tenemos todos los documentos
arises
para
by the end
poder
of June. We'll have all these elements
movilizar
to
los camiones y
mobilize
estanques
the
en caso
trucks
de
and
grandes cortes y se
reservoirs in
equipará en
case
la medida
of
que sea, como decía,
some
necesario.
cutting of the
El importe
service,
de CAPEX
and it will
es
be
muy
done as
significativo porque
necessary. The
principalmente
capex is
es un
very significant
proyecto
because this is a
que se
project
ha licitado en
that
servicio
has been
de los
submitted to
camiones
a
y
bidding
hay
process
algún CAPEX
for the
adicional, pero
trucks,
es
and there
muy
is a
menor.
additional capex that is
Y el
quite
incremento de
minor.
tarifa asociado
And
a
concerning
este
now the
proyecto en
increase
Aguascalientes
of
es
the
del
rates related to this project
0,55%,
is
que como decía se
0.55%.
aplicará de
As
forma
I said
retroactiva
before,
el 15 de
is
septiembre.
applied retroactively
Perfecto,
to
muchísimas
September
gracias.
15. Thank you very
Tengo acá
much.
otra
I
pregunta,
have
Miquel, si
another
tú también
question
pudieras
here,
ayudarnos
Mikel,
con
if you
esta.
can help us with this
Tiene que ver con
question too,
costos.
and it's related to
¿Dónde ven
costs.
oportunidades para
Where do
reducir
you see
costos
opportunities
más
to
allá del
reduce
costo
costs?
eléctrico? El costo de
And
mantención,
beyond
por
the
ejemplo,
electrical cost, the
está
cost of
creciendo a una
maintenance
tasa
is
más baja
going
en el
up at
último
a
trimestre.
lower
¿Podría
rate in
esto
the last
comenzar
quarter.
a
Could
disminuir en
this start
2026?
to be reduced in the 2026?
Gracias. Em, Dos cosas. Por un
Two
lado,
things to point
en
out.
el
First of
plan de
all,
Federa nosotros estamos mirando qué
we
optimizaciones
are
podemos hacer
seeing what are the
en
optimizations
prácticamente
that
toda
could
la línea de
take
costos. Es
place
decir,
in all the
no creemos que haya una
line of
única bala de
costs.
plata
We
para mejorar los
don't
costos, sino
think
que
that there is just one
revisamos
place to
cualquier
improve costs,
costo
but we
que
review
podamos
all
tener
the
y por
costs that we
poco que
can
pueda
have.
reducirse o
And
mitigarse el
even though
incremento. Si
if we
nos
can
fijamos
just
específicamente en el
mitigate that cost a
mantenimiento
little bit, if we
de
just
redes,
see the maintenance of
esos son
networks,
servicios
that is,
que
those are
tienen un componente muy
services
importante de mano
that
de
have a
obra
very
que
important
de alguna
labor
forma
of
en los últimos
component.
años también
In the
indirectamente
recent years,
en los servicios ha ido creciendo su costo
this is also
por
increasing in
todas las
costs for the
reformas
services as a
que ha
result of all
habido
the reforms
en
that
los
are
últimos dos,
occurring
tres años.
in the last
Dicho
two or
esto,
three
como
years.
señalaba la
So,
pregunta, en el último trimestre hemos
in the
conseguido
last quarter, we have
mantener
succeeded to
relativamente estable ese
maintain
costo.
this cost
Algún
very
trimestre atrás, no
stable.
recuerdo cuál fue
And
exactamente,
some quarters ago, I don't remember
lo estuvimos
exactly on
comentando,
which one we were commenting
el
this.
crecimiento del mantenimiento lo
The
veíamos
increase
con
of
esa tendencia
maintenance was
a la
seen with
estabilización,
this
con un
trend
objetivo
towards stability,
de
with
mantener
the
como mínimo esa
objective to
estabilización
maintain as
e incluso,
minimum
de ser posible, su
this
reducción.
rating and even
Creo que en
reducing
el
that.
día del Investor lo comenté,
I think
estamos
that
trabajando de
in
una forma
Investors
amplia
Day, we commented
en
that we are
una
working very hard
redefinición de cómo
in
trabajar las redes,
redefining
eso
how to
incluye
work
mantenimiento.
vis-a-vis the networks,
Estamos en
including
la
the
parte
maintenance
final
of networks, and we
de
are coming to the
este
end of
proyecto e iniciativa
this project or
y que esperamos
initiative.
tenga buenos
And we
resultados para el año que
expect
viene.
that it will
Es
be
pronto aún
good,
para
having
anticipar
good
nada,
results for the
pero
next
digamos
year.
que esta estabilización de su
And
incremento yo
the
creo que es la primera
stabilization
buena
of the
noticia que espero
increase is the
sea la
first
primera de
good
otras en el
news, and
futuro.
I hope this is the first one of other good news in the future.
Muchas gracias, Miquel.
Thank you, Mikel.
Tenemos acá otra pregunta
We have
que va en la
another
línea de las
question in
operaciones
the line of
y
operations,
se la quisiera hacer a
and I
Cristian
would like
Torres, si
to
nos
ask
puedes
this
ayudar
question
con
to
esto.
Christian Torres, if you can
En
help
cuanto a
us with this
tecnología e
question.
inteligencia
Concerning the
artificial,
technology
¿ha
and
incorporado
artificial
herramientas de
intelligence, have
automatización o
you
inteligencia
included
artificial en
tools
procesos que
of
tengan un
automation
impacto
or
en eficiencias
AI
operativas?
in these processes that have an impact in the efficiency? Yes, the company is not lagging behind and cannot be in the past regarding the automation of AI or AI. As a matter of fact, we have a whole access seeking it to encourage this initiative, and particularly from the workers themselves, coming from the workers themselves. I could highlight an initiative that comes to my mind now, and is related to the optimization in a predictive manner, everything related to the burden of air injection in the processes of the wastewater processing. What does this allow to have in line and to pre or envisage the behavior and to make more efficient the electricity consumption of the company, and the technology allows to determine in a continuous manner the exact accurate level of air that should be injected into the process. This is done in situ, in a more sequential manner. And now it can be handled online 24/7. And this favors also the reduction in the cost related to the airing, aeration in the biofactory and the treatment of wastewater. And we can estimate some reduction of 30-40% of power consumption. This is an example of how the artificial intelligence can be applied. We already have some precise aspects in the processes of the company. This is very interesting, this line of development that we are now including. Thank you very much, Christian. We see that there are no further questions in the chat box. And obviously, if you have any doubts or if you require further information after the event, please do not hesitate to uh, contact the group of investors relations. We would like to remind you that this event will be available in the website in both English and Spanish. And we thank you once again for participating in this video conference of the 9M25 results conference. Thank you very much to our panelists. Thank you.